we can get started. Okay, cool. So today is Wednesday, 17th of March, and this is the Metal3 Community meeting. As usually, we start with the introduction rounds. If we have some new people on the call who want to introduce themselves. I don't think it's the case. All names look familiar, but I will still pause in case for just a couple of seconds.
I'm fairly new to the project. I haven't spoken before. So my name is Michael. I'm working with EST on Metal3.
Okay, well, let's keep going with the meat of the agenda. So the first point is from Furkat. Yes, you're in the call. Please take over.
Oh, hi, folks. Yeah, it's regarding the removal of V1 alpha 2 types from class API provider Metal3. In the last community meeting, we agreed to put a lazy consensus to merge this PR. So today is the end of the lazy consensus, and I was wondering if there are any objections to merge this. And I think Feruz already sent update on the mailing list, and as far as I know, he didn't get any objections on that. So if there are, please raise it's time to raise it. If not, it's, I think, safe to merge.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions regarding this? No? Okay, let's move on then to the next point, the in-progress design proposal. Oh, sorry, there was something.
No, thank you.
Okay, cool. Then, Stefan, if you're on the call.
Yeah, sure. So on the call last week, we had a discussion about how we might be able to get better visibility of the in-progress design discussions, and in particular, how we can avoid the situation where sometimes proposals get stuck or stalled for a long period of time. So we agreed that we'd try doing a weekly readout in this call just to kind of raise visibility. We don't necessarily have to go through each one in detail, but we certainly can look at the details if there are specific items which need discussion. But the idea was really just to give people a heads up of things which are new and to flag things which maybe might be stuck and need a bit of extra attention. So I went through before the call and created this list. There were two which I think are just ready to go. The first one was the proposal to update the automated cleaning. This was just an update to an existing proposal around some API changes, and there's also a corresponding BMO PR. So unless there's any concerns, I think we can probably go ahead and merge that today. And the second one was the external inspection, which was something I raised some time ago. The implementation for that actually merged a few days ago, and at the last meeting we agreed to have another week of lazy consensus. So I didn't see any objections on the PR. So again, unless there are any concerns, we could go ahead and merge that one today, I think. So yeah, did anyone have any concerns about those two or any comments, or should we carry on to the ones which are still under review?
I just wanted to say that the first one, that the owner of that PR is not is on holidays for this whole week, so maybe we can just proceed with it next week.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, as it was just an adjustment of an existing proposal, I think we can maybe just go with the review feedback on there. I think it's already got an LGTM, so yeah, I think it was quite a small update, so we should be safe to merge it, and then we can iterate on the implementation separately. Okay, so then I thought it'd be helpful to call out the things which are new this week, which folks may not have noticed. So there was one from Jacob Anders. He's based in Australia, if I remember correctly, so I don't think he's on this call. This was in response to a bare metal operated PR, and the idea was to enable a no-op driver for some problematic hardware. I haven't had a chance to review this. I think it just got pushed today, so that's one which maybe folks can have a look at, and we can decide. I think the API may need some discussion. There was some concerned whether we needed a new BMC connection type or just a flag to the existing one. So yeah, please take a look at that one. Then there's the update strategy to the Metal3 data template. I haven't actually looked at that one myself yet.
I can give an overview on that one if you want, or I
Sure.
think I should the call. Well, I can go for it. So the problem with the metal. Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was muted. Mal, you can also take over because we discussed it like together. So I think you have the better picture.
Sure. So the core problem that we were hitting with this Metal3 data template, so that's on the CapM3 side, was that the network data template and the metadata template that are used to generate the secrets that we pass to the BMH, those were immutable. Because the decision was made to make them immutable so that we don't have a case where they would be changed and then we would have to go everywhere, modify the secrets, and that would mean that what you actually provisioned your node with is not the actual secret. Like there would be this delta between what's actually running and what you have in your CRs. So the idea behind the putting it immutable was to prevent this kind of issues. But that then was actually a problem in the case where you want to do an update of those templates because they are immutable. So this PR is introducing a new mechanism to not only have the Metal3 data generated out of a template reference that template alone, but also be able to like have multiple data templates that are basically sharing this pool of Metal3 data generated out of it, so that you can basically do a rolling upgrade. So you have the old one from which all the Metal3 data were generated with each one with their own indexes, and then you create a new Metal3 data template. And when you are reprovisioning the nodes with the new CAPI machine, then they will get a claim. They will create a Metal3 data claim towards the new template, and the Metal3 data that will be generated will still follow the index of the old Metal3 data template, but will be actually using the templates that are coming from this new Metal3 data template. So this allows to share basically share the pool of indexes for that specific deployment in Capiston. So yeah, that's the idea, and to go around this immutability issues without having to update and reconcile all changes of the Metal3 data template into the secrets and have this delta basically. I feel like I explained it a bit in a confusing way, but of course, like please take a look, and if you have any comments on this, put it on the PR.
I think that was really helpful. Thanks for sharing the context, particularly for those of us who haven't been as focused on the the CapM3 work. That's really helpful. So yeah, I guess we can follow up and continue the discussion on the PR.
Sure, thanks.
The third one is one that I raised earlier this week. So the problem I'm trying to solve here is that we're trying to deploy a cluster from an existing cluster. So a similar kind of pivot process to that which I know has been implemented before in the community. One difference in this case is that we want to have the parent cluster persist the bare metal host resources, but then just stop managing them, and then we deploy a child cluster which will then contain bare metal host resources which manage the hardware, particularly so that we can enable the machine remediation work, the fencing and reboots. We want that to be handled on each cluster locally and not have a dependency on the parent cluster. So I know this is kind of similar to the use case which resulted in the paused annotation previously, but we realized that the paused annotation doesn't actually remove the host from Ironic. So it will continue to assert power state from the parent cluster, such that if you try and do a fencing operation on the child cluster, nodes might get restarted from the parent cluster. So there's been some good discussion on here. I need to rework the proposal based on the feedback, but my initial suggestion was that we could maybe use the maintenance mode flag for Ironic. That's certainly an option, and it would solve the problem. We then had some discussion on whether we should adjust the behavior of the paused annotation such that it actually removes the nodes from Ironic whilst reconciliation is paused, and also allows us to delete bare metal hosts that are in that state without deprovisioning. So yeah, I'm happy to discuss or answer any questions on that, and also welcome feedback on the PR. As I mentioned, it's due for an update based on the comments so far, which I'll try and get done today. But happy to answer any questions now, and also interested to kind of hear feedback on that pivot use case and how other users might plan to do this kind of operation.
I have a question regarding this. So when you say that we can actually extend the paused annotation, so the functionality of the pause annotation is to make or pause the reconciliation on the bare metal host, and then when we are actually taking the bare metal host from the source to the target cluster, we again unpause it so that it actually remains with the state that it was in the source cluster. But now if we add this functionality, would this anyhow change the default behavior of the pivot process, for example, or the pause annotation was initially designed for?
Well, that's a very good question, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of raise it and get broader feedback. I mean, in the OpenShift case, which I'm working on, we have two Ironics. So the bootstrapping, the parent cluster is going to have an Ironic, which does the initial provisioning, and then the child cluster is going to have another metal cube, another bare metal operator, and another Ironic. So in that case, we kind of want to stop Ironic doing anything at all with the host on the parent cluster. The behavior could change if we go ahead with what's been discussed on this. If you had a single Ironic, which was used by both parent and child cluster. So
actually, we have also we completely removed the Ironic from the source cluster and we redeploy it on the target one. Okay. Or the child cluster, as you said.
So it sounds like this should still work, but the difference is we keep the Ironic. We're gonna keep the Ironic and the bare metal host resources around on the parent cluster, and it's not an ephemeral cluster in this particular environment.
I think it would be valuable to add this maintenance mode to whenever, for example, we are putting the post annotation, then we could also put the maintenance mode and ensure that the maintenance mode gets set on Ironic before actually taking the pose into use. Because the requirement for this pose annotation is coming from CAPI, and we have to really not have any reconciliation of that object while we're doing the pivoting from CAPI point of view. So that's why we will probably need to keep the pose annotations behavior as it is now, but we could also indeed make sure that the maintenance mode gets set whenever we are entering the post state, maybe, because then we wouldn't have to delete the whole Ironic deployment to stop the reconciliation of those nodes before pivoting.
So that's definitely one option, and that's slightly different to what's been proposed in the discussion so far. We did have some discussion on whether we should just add a new annotation and leave the current paused annotation alone, and that would be something like an unmanaged annotation. And in that case, we wouldn't necessarily stop reconciliation completely, but we would remove the host from Ironic and stop doing any active management of it. The concern there was it is quite similar in behavior to the paused annotation, so we wondered whether it would make sense to instead adjust the API that exists. One concern about just using the maintenance mode flag, which I think was raised by Dimitri, is when we reschedule, so in the OpenShift case, we deploy a single pod on the cluster, which is containing the bare metal operator and ironic components. And if one of the control plane nodes gets upgraded or rebooted, then the pod gets rescheduled and we lose the contents of the ironic database. And so when you're operating MetalCube in that mode, you're quite dependent on the adopt behavior and being able to recreate the state in ironic. There was some concern that that process wouldn't necessarily work with the maintenance mode flag applied, or we'd need to take extra care to make sure that when we create the host, there's no race where after enrolling, ironic tries to assert the power state before we have a chance to set the maintenance mode flag. I think that's probably solvable, but it's a bit more complicated to implement than just removing the host from ironic completely.
Yeah, removing the host sounds good. Like no problem there. It's just that if we want to use that together with the pose annotation, then we'll need to make sure that we have a precedence on the because the pose annotation right now is just completely stopping any reconciliation. Like it shortcuts the reconcile loop like right at the beginning. So we would just need to make sure that the unmanaged, or like let's say maintenance mode annotation would be handled first before like going into the post annotation, let's say.
Yeah, I see. So it sounds like the consensus is that we should probably have a new annotation for this behavior and just make sure that it can be applied before we use the paused.
Well, the thing is, we need the pause from KP point of view to completely like stop the reconciliation, and that doesn't fit your use case, right? Because you still like you want to have the reconciliation, just have the node out of ironic, right?
Maybe it would be enough if pausing reconciliation as a first step before pausing, we would just remove the node from ironic. That would also be sufficient for this use case. One problem Doug spotted with that is that we can't update the status if anything goes wrong. So
well, if that way is good for you, then it's like perfect for the CAPI kind of side of things. But if it's not, then we'll probably need to go in the direction of having two different APIs.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Well, perhaps I'll push a draft pull request with the implementation based on the current pause annotation, and then we can decide if that's going to interfere with the current CAPI workflow. But in the meantime, please comment on the PR. That was really helpful feedback, and I'll push an updated proposal trying to capture all of the discussion we've had so far.
Great, thank you.
It's going to be a lot easier for you to implement as a separate annotation. But it can be done using the paused one, but it's going to be a lot easier to implement if you just create a new one.
All right, I haven't actually started hacking on it yet, so I'll take your word for it, Zane. That may save me some time and some pain if I take that approach first. All right, well, thank you everyone for taking the time to go through that. I'll update the PR today, and we can continue discussion on the review. All right, so now we're back into the in progress lists. Stephen, last week you raised the BMC eventing topic. Any update there? Is it just a question of still looking for more feedback, or are there dependencies to discuss there?
Yeah, we got some good feedback last week. There hasn't been any more activity in the last few days. I did update the doc a couple of days ago with the latest feedback, so it could use some additional reviews.
All right, thank you. And then there were a couple more here. Himanshu pushed an update which adds a presentation framework or template that needs some reviews. Himanshu, did you have anything to mention about that at all? I think you're on the call.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, not much actually. Just wanted to somebody to take a look at that. So there were some issues with a separate markdown file to include in the reveal.js HTML file. So I kind of moved that in line, so that should take care of it. The reason I did that was there were some difficulties with keeping it separate. There were some clashes with the markdown rules. So I thought it would be better to avoid any other issues as well to move that in line. So if anybody could please take a look at that. Let me know if that looks okay or not. Yeah, that's all.
All right, thank you, Himanshu. So yeah, we'll get some reviews on that. The next one is the Metamorph provisioner proposal. I guess this is potentially a big change for this community, the first kind of alternative provisioner. I haven't seen very many comments on it, so I don't know if there's value to discussing that now, or if there's anyone on the call who can provide more details, or if we just need to focus some review attention on that one. No, I guess that's a question of just getting eyes on it then. And then I tried to kind of capture the ones which I wasn't sure were making progress. So the update remediation controller, that had some good discussion, and then it's not been updated.
I can give an update for that one. If yes, I've been working with the remediation controller. This is related to actual implementation PR that is also open. And I haven't had time to go through those comments like in last couple of weeks. So I promised to go then through, especially in this proposal or the update for the proposal before next community meeting in next Wednesday. So this is not blocked in any way, and it's not necessarily ready yet, but I go through it till next Wednesday, and we can continue maybe discussing if there anything blocking this, or we can probably merge this then. Yeah, that's all.
All right, thanks for the update. Yeah, I mean, the aim was just to make sure that you weren't blocked on feedback on the review. So I'll move that to the in progress category.
Yeah, it's in progress. Thanks.
Okay, so we had another one around early cleaning. I know there was some good discussion on that previously. Dimitri's on the call. So it sounds like that's just, it is a bit blocked for now, but maybe we're going to come back to it. Is that a reasonable summary?
Yeah, this is correct. It's still something I'm planning to do. It's just shadowed by other priorities, mostly downstream related, that I have right now, and by the fact that in Ironic we're approaching a release, so I have more responsibilities up the stream. So I would expect it to get back to it maybe in a few weeks. And feedback is still welcome, so it's not abandoned completely.
Excellent, thanks, Dimitri. Okay, and then there are the external hardware RAID. I haven't been following that one, but did anyone want to talk about that, or that one hasn't been updated in some months by the looks of it? No, I guess, well, if folks can maybe take a look and we can all see if there's anything we can do to move that along, or if not, we can revisit the discussion at another time. And then Mail, I see you've commented the automatic network configuration. This one's been under discussion for quite some time now.
Yeah, so we still have a weekly meeting with Andrea, Shukun, and Hao on that one. So we have a work session every Friday mornings. Well, it depends on the time zone, obviously, but yes, it's going good. but there's not yet the proposal hasn't been updated with the output of the work. Like all the work is now going into a Google Docs.
Great, thanks for the update. So I've moved that back into the in progress list as well. So that was all. Hopefully that was helpful. You know, if folks feel it's helpful to do this, maybe not every week, we could do it once every few meetings. We can repeat this process. What do folks think? Is it worth continuing this kind of summary, either every meeting or every few meetings?
I would say definitely. Maybe not every week, indeed, but like a couple of weeks. That gives a very good picture of what's going on in the project.
All right. Well, I'll try and prepare another list in another 2 or 3 weeks' time, and we can try and keep things moving.
Great. Thank you very much. If there's no further comments on this point, I suggest we move to the next one. Okay, so this next point, it's actually a joint point from Kashif and myself. So we've been like working with the scenario where there has been, well, we have some like external kind of externally triggered reboot of a node, and Ironic was not behaving exactly as we wanted it to behave. So there was a bit of a discussion on the Ironic's IRC channel, for those of you who follow this, about this point, that the problem was actually coming from the tokens, right? That if IPA was rebooted, then it lost the token, and then like Ironic had to trigger its own reboot of the node to get the token back. So we were trying to find a solution to accept this kind of like external reboots, and so the idea that we had was to use the Ironic discovery procedure. So basically, when we know that there's going to be an externally triggered reboot, then we just remove the node from the Ironic database, and then power it on. It boots over IPA, and with the discovery flow, then gets populated into the Ironic database, and then BMO is able, thanks to recent PR from well, the GitHub ID is Honza. I'm not exactly sure what's the name under that. The BMO is actually able to figure out that that node matches the BMH, and then just picks it up and keep on going. However, we've seen that the discovery was actually disabled by Dmitry a couple of months back. And so there's a question there, that is that PR that is actually like checking for the ports so that it doesn't create the ports if it already exists. Is this enough to fix the issue you were mentioning in the PR when you disabled the discovery flow, or was there something more under that problem?
I guess it should fix the immediate problem, but I'm really surprised by the overall approach. If you anyway know that there's going to be external power event, why can't you just send this power event through Ironic?
And because we don't have control on that one. It's an external process that manages some kind of like hardware level changes that we can't do through Ironic, unfortunately.
But you said you know it's going to happen, so you can remove the node from Ironic.
Yes, because we know we are triggering the process, but that process cannot be triggered from Ironic because it's not just a reboot, right? It's something else, and that process will trigger a reboot at some point, but we don't know when.
probably should work, but you're really in dangerous territory with regards to that. You're trying to do something from within of 2 layers of abstraction, and both metal cubed and ironic. And yeah, it may work. I'd still try to find a way that does not involve discovery.
Is there then any API or anything on the Ironic side that would allow to invalidate the token so that Ironic could accept IPA requesting a new one, even if it doesn't trigger a reboot?
Just power it off. If you don't need a reboot, just power off the node, and whenever your thing has to put it back again, then.
But isn't it so that if we say it's powered off, if there's something else that manages, like during the upgrade, like powers it on because it's needed to like flash the new firmware or something like this, then Ironic will like be messing around with the process by trying to turn off the node again.
That, yes, that is likely, unless you also set maintenance, which is probably something you should be doing, because it's literally is maintenance as it sounds to me. So what you probably should do is power off set maintenance and don't unset it back until you're in a predictable state.
And so if the node is powered off, but from Ironic's point of view, but then it still boots IPA, will the IPA then be able to fetch the token at that point or not?
It will not. On the next request to do something, Ironic will reboot it again.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to avoid. That because that's going to start to make a lot of reboots one after the other.
Well, you're trying to do unpredictable things from Ironic perspective, but get predictable result. It's tough.
Yeah, we found that it was not an easy way to easy thing to do.
Yeah, we can think more about it. Maybe we should start, exchanging emails or somehow, because I don't have any proposal out of my head. Maybe I'll think about something later.
Do you think it would make sense maybe to have a proposal to add this way of like invalidating the current token and allow like any further request to like from IPA to get a new one without like having any power management operations involved in Ironic?
Well, if you have Ironic Python agent running and you do this, imagine you give an API for that. Ironic Python agent probably request a token again, or won't it? Maybe it won't. It doesn't sound completely insane to me, so it may be something we can consider, but yeah, we need probably your use case written down, maybe in the form of an RFE against Ironic. Just, with details what you're trying to do, what you want to see, and what limitations you're facing. Maybe we should remove the token on maintenance mode, actually. I need to think about this.
Because the whole reason for this shenanigans around around the power management is this token that we have no way to no way to say like, okay, yeah, we expect IPA to request a new one. Like we don't have any way to tell Ironic that, basically.
Maybe we could use maintenance mode as a sign that any token request is fine at this point. Maybe. We need a community-wide discussion in the Ironic world, so some write-up would be appreciated.
Okay, then like we'll see for like submitting something about this. Like, maybe starting with an email discussion.
I have a small addition, Mile, with the test that we were doing. I did one round more, and then I'm facing another strange error that the bare metal host has a redfish like a BMC, but the BMO after the discovery, when it tries to register the BMH again in BMO, it says that missing the following IPMI credential in nodes driver info. It's a bit strange. Why is it finding?
Oh, that is because of the discovery flow.
Right.
The ironic it populates the driver info with IPMI by default. Is that correct, Dimitri?
Yeah, it's set on the configuration file, but by default it's IPMI because after you delete an Ironic, a node from Ironic no longer knows anything about it. So when you ask it to recreate without specifying anything, it will just recreate with whatever's the default file in Ironic conf is, and it happens to be IPMI.
Okay.
Yeah. But okay, well, we'll probably be more in touch regarding this because that's a feature we kind of need. So we'll send an email or something. Let's see how we get that started. But thanks a lot for the input. Okay, then let's move to the next point. Sumit, that's yours.
Yeah, hi. So our proposals recently got merged, and based on that, we have created the functionality PRs. For this, we need actually OK to test, and for the first 4, and for the last one, that's 61, it needs approval kind of LGT basically. I mean, the code part is done in 61, and for other 4, we need a OK to test so that we can take it further. So that is for point 1. And for the second point, this is the recent observation that in the introspection data, we are not seeing the RAM parameter values being populated. I mean, that parameter itself is absent. That is actually like having a regression issue, because earlier in phase 1 we had a support for RAM parameters as well, but in this phase it is actually not getting fetched, so it is comparing against 0 value. So like we will raise a issue for this, but like need to check the logs before erasing that bug.
Okay, thank you, Sumit.
Yeah. This discussion I already had with Feroz. So Feroz thought like inform that you can raise this issue in the today's community. So I have put this point.
Yeah, I think the best would be just to open the bug
issue.
Like,
yeah,
sure.
Issue
in BMO.
Yeah, I mean this we got actually yesterday only, but I thought like some time we'll take it for the debugging and then we'll raise. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I have a question. So if we add anything to introspection data, it's a general question inspired by this item, but not necessarily related to it. If we ever add anything to introspection data, will it break the case of people providing introspection data manually through an annotation?
As long as we don't add any required fields, I don't think it will break anything.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that or anything.
Oh, I will.
Okay, then, well, Dmitry, next point is yours also, so please go on.
Yeah, right. In Ironic client, we have a standalone CLI that doesn't require OpenStack client. So it's a necessary dependency, and depending on what you have in your repositories, it may even still be broken because of HTTP basic problem. For example, our downstream repositories actually are broken. So I'm, just as a heads up, no actions required for you, I'm starting to get rid of OpenStack client, which means you're no longer invoking OpenStack bare metal commands, but doing just bare metal. That's the main difference. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on this point? Questions? No? Okay, cool. Then Forcat, next point is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Mal. It's just heads up that we have applied for Docker Hub account to the CNCF, since we were seeing this pool rate limit issue, and also Google Cloud Storage resources were requested in the same application, if I'm not mistaken. That's for the pro configuration that is going on, the meeting going on with Russell every Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this just heads up, and then we are waiting for the response from the CNCF to get those resources.
So the Docker Hub account is supposed to solve the CI issue, right?
Yeah, hopefully. Since it's a paid account, it should not have the pull rate limit issue.
Okay, good. Thank you. Is there any additional topics that someone would want to discuss and add to this list?
I just quickly want to add, I forgot to actually put it, but since Steve is here, so it was regarding one of his PRs, the Sushi Tools one, and we were having a discussion to maybe add a way to build the containers also whenever we are actually modifying the Docker files in Metal3 event. I think that could be a good approach. We need to add it, and since you are planning to bump the Sushi Tool version again, would it be possible to add the functionality on the same, or maybe a PR before that, which would actually verify the building process also?
Yeah, sure. I wasn't sure if we needed to change anything in the CI configuration to support that, but we've already got the code in Metal3 devenv can build the container, and so I think we just need to override that Sushi Tools local image variable in the config. So does the config we use in CI live in the Metal3 devenv repo, or I forget where that's maintained?
I think that there is also something that's coming from project infra mile. Can you remember if we need to put something there?
Yes, so the project infra part is controlling like which repository will need to be built. So it gives the image, it sets the image variables to the local file where the repository has been cloned. So in the case of Metal3 devenv, it does it a bit specifically because it's not per se like just building like BMO or Capn3, but like there's one file in project infra that has all this logic about like setting what needs to be built in place. But we really don't have any code in Metal3 devenv, I think, to. No, actually, we could, yeah, you're right. Like it could upload the built Sushi tool to the registry locally, and then.
I mean, it doesn't even need to do that. We've got code that builds it just in the local Docker or Podman image cache, and then it can run it. And we already default to running the Sushi Tools local image if it's set. So I think maybe the problem is we just don't set that in CI. So thanks to the pointer, I'll go and have a look at the project infra repo and see if I can figure out what we need to change.
Thanks. I'm sorry that we had to actually take that down. It was because of the CI to just get it going.
No,
we
it's
were
fine.
We were not sure what was wrong, so we just.
Yeah, I did test it locally, but I didn't test the deprovisioning part of it. And thanks to Dimitri, he spotted that it was a quoting issue. So it should be a simple fix, but it would be nice to make sure that it's actually tested in CI. So I'll try and get that working first.
Sure, thanks.
And if you do it for Sushi Tools, it's probably going to be exactly the same thing for VBMC. So if you don't mind doing both at the same time, that would be great.
Yeah, no problems. I probably won't get to it today, but I'll try and do it before the end of the week.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks. Okay, good. Is there any additional points to be discussed? No? Well, then I guess we can close the meeting here. Thank you all for joining, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.